Stop trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act.
Biden pointed to the president's recent rally in Oklahoma and a comment about slowing down testing. Biden said the president complained that more cases made him look bad.
His job isn't to whine about it. His job is to do something about it, to lead.
Biden continues his campaign push against the president, outdoing the incumbent in recent fundraising. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
A North Texas police officer shot and killed a woman Thursday morning after she'd stabbed him and another driver after a car crash involving the stolen car she was driving. The officer now on leave, the DA investigating. The Pentagon reporting Thursday that 2 Russian aircraft came within 50 miles of one of Alaska's Aleutian Islands earlier this week, intercepted by U.S. fighter planes. It's the 5th time this month that's happened. A social media giant taking a step to slow the reposting of stuff that you saw weeks ago.
Facebook introducing a notification screen, letting users know when they are sharing content like an article that's over 3 months old. The pop-up will ask folks if they'd like to go back or continue posting. Facebook also testing a notification screen for posts about the coronavirus, which would direct the sharer to the site's COVID-19 Information Center with authoritative health information. Reps saying in a blog post, through providing more context, our goal is to make it easier for people to identify content that's timely, reliable, and most valuable to them. Kristen Goodwin, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Oro magunom, matana lom suman kumin healthy and lessness. Karingin kumniki matsaye nakshike sinjing kanyan fashil klan masenge. Inwang takayani and wang napashali, matana lom suman. Akayakom is mongle ashosh kamofal esukumines be vitamin nasum. Karingin gupsifena in niceness in tia apashali. O about to kungom somnayen, tia kalmotom, infame, inwelum, eaknas nasyen kumatakyan. Inaksafye akola. Arela emergency contact list lom, aroy nash mo yaknas nas kaonlo in nomsuman, nakarangin in jash mit masin nomsuman. Aro makuno minakoye aknas nasyen kuam in nasnas ain safe. Nanakmanas, matana in nomsuman. Message saying masin manyatlo, Micronesian Research Center at Choice Broadcasting.
Bouncing back, I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. President Trump telling a Fox News town hall in Wisconsin Thursday the U.S. economy is recovering quickly from the coronavirus.
We've done a lot, and we're very proud of it. And we had the best, until this artificial problem, because I call it an artificial problem. We had to turn off our country to save millions of lives, and now we've turned it back on, and it's coming back much faster than anybody thought possible.
But cases of the virus still rising in several states. Texas Governor Greg Abbott reimposing a ban on elective surgeries and delaying lifting any more restrictions. The Centers for Disease Control now estimating that 20 million Americans have been infected since the outbreak started. That's about 10 times greater the number of confirmed cases, suggesting that millions of people had the coronavirus and didn't know it. Nearly along party lines, the House of Representatives has passed a police reform bill named for one of the victims of police brutality.
The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act will fundamentally transform the culture of policing to address systemic racism, curb police brutality, and bring accountability to our police departments.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, the bill heads next to the Senate, where Democrats on Wednesday defeated a Republican reform bill. Barring a compromise, reform measures are probably stalled. Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio says that's not right.
There is nothing more un-American than racial discrimination and racial inequality, and we should address it. And the only way to address it is for everyone in America to say we want to deal with it, because it impacts all of us, whether it does directly or indirectly.
Protesters did not make an attempt to damage the Emancipation Memorial in Washington, as they'd threatened on Thursday. There are reports they'll try again over the weekend. The statue of Lincoln and a freed slave, now protected by fencing and a heavy police presence. America is listening to Fox News.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hakata and Tuman are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mezcla, a true taste of Guam.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is also brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Ever heard that before, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, I have.
Yeah. You think you'll hear it again?
I believe so.
You won't be hearing it tomorrow unless you're talking to yourself.
That's right. It's Friday.
Yeah, today is Friday, our least favorite day of the week. Real Joe Cruz and I favor Monday over all others, as that means we've got 5 whole days of tall tales ahead of us. But here we sit on Friday afternoon, no tall tales tomorrow, no tall tales on Sunday. It's going to be tough, but the Real Joe Cruz and I will tough it out, and we'll be back here Monday afternoon at 1600. Next week's really going to be a toughie, Real Joe Cruz.
Really?
No tall tales on Friday.
Ah, I see.
So we'll have 3 days of intense jonesing at the end of the week. Okay, so much for the Second Amendment. Let's go to Zemi Ikotny. So, as usual, the Daily News doesn't let us down. Same old stuff with the Daily News. A gentleman named Tom Nichols, a national security professor at the Naval War College and a member of USA Today's Board of Contributors. Oh, that's really something, huh?
Well, that's quite a title, sir.
Yeah, and he says, civility's fine, but some views deserve contempt. When you wake up in the morning, Roman Stoic Marcus Aurelius advised some 20 centuries ago, prepare for disappointment. Tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He then admonishes us to remember that we are not so different ourselves, and that people who will infuriate us in the course of the day are of, quote, the same mind and possessing a share of the divine. If only we were capable of such self-awareness. Alas, civility has taken a beating over the last few decades or so in our public life. Americans, it seems, are seeking new ways, large and small, to offend each other. Yeah, it's pretty easy to offend some people, right? Using the wrong pronoun. Saying, I saw that guy over there and I told him what I wanted. You told him? How dare you call him him? You have to call him they. You sexist son of a gun. A call for kindness. This lack of civility has soured our politics, especially during and after the contentious election of 2016, to the point where we now no longer simply disagree with each other, but express open contempt to others who do not share our point of view. Amid another election cycle in which the central figure will be the least civil man ever to occupy the Oval Office, at least some public figures are calling for the defeat of contempt and to a more civil discourse. Well, it took them midway through the third paragraph to get down to the Trump bashing, but I kind of figured when I saw the title of the editorial where Mr. Nichols was going with this. So he gave us his nickel's worth, and it's just another exercise in bashing Trump, all in the name of a call for kindness. Okay, next I'm going to go to the Post for Demi Cotney, unless I've got a phone call that I should take first. Should I take the phone call first, Real Joe Cruz? Hang on, Real Joe Cruz says. Well, the title of the editorial is "Looking After the Public's Health or Making Political Moves." It's a question: looking after the public's health or making political moves? Airmen and businesses get treated differently. I guess I don't have to hang on for the phone call.
Oh, no, sir. No, sir.
Somebody wanting to know if King's was open?
No, they just left a message, sir. They wanted to speak to you privately. I said you're in the middle of a radio show.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah. Even Joanne Brown couldn't do that yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. Restaurant owner Jeff Pleadwell on Wednesday shared a concern. His restaurant, like many such establishments on island, was already facing challenges regaining customer confidence in light of Wuhan virus, even when the local government had eased dining-in restrictions. On Wednesday, another obstacle was thrown in, as if the restaurant industry wasn't already struggling. Jeff's business and 29 other business establishments were lumped together, given unwanted publicity after they were identified by a Government of Guam press release as the places that were visited by some Air Force service members who were part of a unit that had a cluster of 35 Wuhan virus cases. Not all of the airmen in this unit tested positive. They do belong to the unit that has a cluster of 35 Wuhan virus cases while deployed on Guam, but this context was not that clear in the government press release. A total of 127 were tested as part of this cluster. Let's be clear. When somebody says, let's be clear, what they're telling you is, here's my best argument, Real Joe Cruz. The airmen who disregarded the military's directive to limit their movement should be punished. They were limited only between two locations, the Guam Reef Hotel, where they had been restricted on a restricted stay, and on Anderson Air Force Base after having arrived on the island on a military transport. The violation is something the command of the 36th Wing, remember that? The 36th Wing. You were hoping it was the right wing, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. On the Air Force Base has assured will be dealt with. Okay. Now, I've got to stop here And I've got to backtrack a little bit to a post from the 23rd of June, which I evaluated as a pretty good post. You know, certainly a candidate for the coveted Blue Star, except for one thing, this sentence. It's not about assigning blame. And I said, if it's not about assigning blame, what's it about? No Blue Star for you today, Daily Post. Well, the Post has reversed itself. And this, again, for emphasis, let's be clear. The airmen who disregarded the military's directive to limit their movement should be punished. And then they also laid it to the Air Force. So I'm going to do something I've never had to do before. I'm going to go back, grant a motion for reconsideration, and award the coveted Blue Star to the Post for its June 23 post. They got it wrong, but they saw the light. So they got a Blue Star out of that one. And of course, that's the object with this virus tracing, is to assign blame. It's not about being nice guys. All right. So the editorial goes on to say, and the violation is something the command of the 36th Wing of the Air Force Base, well, at least it's the command and not the wing itself, assured will be dealt with. And as the Air Force values of integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do are to be followed, then the airmen who violated the directive will be held accountable under military code and rules. Well, I suspect that what's going to happen to those guys, and it'll depend on their rank. For the lower ranking guys, maybe a 30-day restriction, which won't mean much because, in effect, they were already on restriction, right? For some of the higher ranking guys, it could cost them a stripe, because the higher up the flagpole you are, the higher the expectations. Back to the editorial, and as you were. So while the military command takes care of its own violators, let's go back to how Gov Guam handled this issue and how other clusters involving local residents were handled. The public does have a right to know where Wuhan virus patients have been as part of broader awareness and tracing efforts. But it's clear that in the case of the airmen who contracted the disease because of their deployment here, they were treated differently than the local residents who were part of the prior Wuhan virus clusters. The Post had requested in previous clusters of Wuhan virus information that would have helped the public know if they were in places where the prior Wuhan virus patients had been. In prior Wuhan virus cases and clusters, the Department of Public Health and Social, I'm not going to do this department stuff. Linda DeNorsi is the Director of Public Health and Social Services. Whatever happens or doesn't happen goes to her, not to some faceless building called the Department of Public Health. Linda DeNorsi did not identify, even when asked, the public places where the patients had possibly been exposed to Wuhan virus or exposed others to the disease. We were told that specificity on locations would violate federal law on health privacy. Whoa, federal law. We can't do that. It's against federal law. Whoa, pardon me. Please don't tell them that I even asked. What a horrible thing. We had a tough time even getting acknowledgement that the clinic and hospital workers were among the first Wuhan virus cases. Never was it shared by the government in press releases where they went to buy groceries or restaurant food. And here we are with the airmen's cases. Businesses were all lumped together on a list of establishments visited by airmen before they knew they had Wuhan virus or were associated with a unit that has service members who tested positive. The thing is, Pleadwell said, the airmen who visited his restaurant were not among those who tested positive. Doesn't matter. Commissar DeNarcy, if anybody went there, you get, well, I was going to say you get blacklisted, but I better not say that either, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
You cannot say that someone was blacklisted anymore.
Nope.
No. I don't know how are we going to get around that? I suppose even something that's even more derogatory nowadays, oh, he was whitelisted for that. Yeah, they put him on the white list.
I'm going to switch it up.
Really? That's pretty bad. Yeah. I don't want to be on anybody's white list. Yeah. The thing is, Pleadwell said, the airmen who visited his restaurant were not among those who tested positive, as stated by one of the airmen who called him. But that didn't matter. The government press release painted all business establishments as hosts of Wuhan virus-infected patients, even though the positive tests may have come after their visit to the establishments, or even if they didn't even test positive at all. And many of the restaurants named had served to-go food, not dine-in service. Once his restaurant was in the news because of the airman's visit, Pleadwell said his staff got nasty calls from people. GovWam's very public sharing of the news of business establishments visited by airmen offers a contrast to the holding of information on public places visited by members of the local cluster cases from the Iglesia Ni Cristo. GovWam had not released which restaurants, stores, clinics, hospitals, and other places the Iglesia Ni Cristo cluster had been to, even though it's a likely scenario I visited far more public places than the airmen did. In the case of the airmen, there has also been a chorus of criticism from local senators seeking re-election against the military. And our courageous Attorney General came out, boy, he came out just four square on this one. He spoke very strongly. The law is the law, even if you're Air Force. Parenthesis, people in the service don't vote here. So you can beat up on them and run the risk of alienating them, probably not with any risk of losing their vote because they don't vote anyhow. A soft target indeed. In the Iglesia Ni Cristo cluster, Guam's governor named the church a Wuhan virus hero. The church was described in the Hero Award as a proactive partner of GovGuam against the pandemic. The irony here is the airmen got Wuhan virus because they were deployed to serve here. They arrived on May 25, and the first of their cases showed symptoms more than 2 weeks later on June 11, according to the military in a previous timeline. But they, in the local business establishments they've been to, have been treated like pariahs. There's a lot to ponder here. So today, Guam Post, you got another blue star, same day. Congratulations. Keep up the good work, Guam Daily Post. Let's see. Did I not print out a card today? I guess I didn't. Yeah, I had an item in the card, I think, on this very point. Yeah. I have an item in the card. Corona has your Commissar DeNarcy versus the Pirate. Yeah. Well, maybe I probably won't get to it. It's probably okay because we kind of covered it, didn't we? Okay, so Janela versus Troy. Same story here. I think we're up to about, don't have my card, 42 days. Tina versus emergency. I think we're up to 14 days. And then we've got a couple of other items on the card. We've got Wokesters versus Dixie Chicks. We've got California versus Idaho. N. Ray Lewis Baza. Now, the card is always somebody versus somebody else, just like a boxing card. But I've mentioned on a couple occasions, it's like a court calendar, too, where you have the name of the plaintiff versus the defendant or the petitioner versus the respondent. Every once in a while, a case will come on the card that doesn't have two parties, and it will be listed N. Re or N. Ray, which means it's ex parte matter. There's only one party in the case. Well, that's the situation with N. Ray Lewis Baza. And then I've got Commissar DeNorcy versus Jeff, which we pretty much talked about. Angel Sablon versus the Treasury. And another N. Ray Jack Abramoff. Do you remember Jack Abramoff, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir. Lobbyist from Washington.
Uh-huh. Do you remember who he was lobbying for?
Superior Court of Guam.
Uh-huh. He's back in the news.
I'm not as dumb as I look, sir.
Yeah. No comment. Okay. Let's start out with Wokesters versus Dixie Chicks. And of course, I wasn't very woke earlier in the program when I referred to someone being put on the blacklist. No wokester would ever say that. If the blacklist is something you don't want to be on, then obviously you got to call it the white list. There's just no getting around that. So this is from a column by a guy named Tom Woods, who's a pretty good conservative writer, and this is what his subject is. And I suspect that one of our callers later on can amplify on this subject a little bit. The subject is the French Revolution comes to America. The French Revolution is not noted for good times. Okay, the French Revolution comes to America. Well, now the Dixie Chicks have renamed themselves just the Chicks. Now that's a relief. I think everybody assumed they supported slavery with that earlier name. Dixie, what else could it stand for, right? Just like a Dixie. Did you ever eat a Dixie cup when you were a kid, Real Joe Cruz?
Dixie what, sir?
A Dixie cup. You remember? The little cardboard cup with ice cream in it?
I didn't know they called them that. But they do make cups called Dixie cups.
Yeah.
Dixie brand. Plates, Dixie plates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, if you ate a Dixie cup when you were a kid, you supported slavery.
Oh, really?
What's the name of the cup?
I see.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
It's just ipso facto, right? Or res ipsa loquitur, the thing itself speaks. Dixie cup. And when they eventually got told that the word chicks trivializes women's lives, well, we can look forward to new releases from the. So the Dixie Chicks becomes the Chicks, and then chicks is sexist, so you got to take that word out, and you're left with nothing but the. Just add one Y to it, and you really got something you can deal with, right? Yeah, I went to a concert the other night, and I saw and the lead singer, after the set, came over, and they talked to me. I used to know the meanings of all of these words.
Yep.
Even these short ones now are so hard. Okay. Now, and of course, they have to be careful lest they run into intellectual property disputes with the old band called The. This is a trivial example, to be sure, but with statues coming down and product names being changed and works of propaganda being added to the school reading lists, well, it's all of a piece. People have been making comparisons to the French Revolution. That period, too, sought to remake society from the bottom up, as if to underscore that history was beginning anew, as if to underscore that history was beginning anew. The Gregorian calendar was replaced by a new calendar dating from the execution of the French king. Okay, so let's take a short break here.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Brothers but branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
We now return to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, soaring over the confusion with his superpowers of truth. Call 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
So jumping back into the middle of this column here, people have been making comparisons to the French Revolution. That period, too, sought to remake society from the bottom up. As if to underscore that history was beginning anew, the Gregorian calendar was replaced by a new calendar dating from the execution of the French king. That would be the year 1. Whereas we started ours from the birth of Jesus Christ, right? Statues of saints were guillotined. Now, you know what a guillotine is, don't you, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, it's a device made and built to sever heads off of bodies, sir.
Exactly.
And it comes from the top to the bottom using gravity as its force.
Very good.
I'm not as stupid as I look.
Oh, very good definition, Real Joe Cruz. Statues of saints were guillotined. Names of streets were changed. Religious holidays were banned. Tens of thousands of priests had to flee into exile, and there were gruesome murders of regime opponents, as in the drownings at Nats and the executions of the martyrs at Compiègne. This, unfortunately, is the nature of the primary foe we face. Now, a lot of my international, I don't think the international radio listening audience would fall into this, but a lot of folks out there are thinking, oh yeah, French Revolution, this is an interesting story, but it really doesn't have anything to do with me. Guess again, read the paper, watch the news. It has everything to do with 330 million people in the United States. As Tom Wood says, this, unfortunately, is the nature of the primary foe we face. They do not look at the world as consisting of diverse peoples with varying points of view that ought to be entertained respectfully. It consists instead of enemies who deserve to be silenced and humiliated. Those enemies' old ways of living must be destroyed and rendered odious, and their lingering attachment to them made an object of ridicule and laughter. Even if you're moderately different, like the Mensheviks and the social revolutionaries in Lenin's Russia, you too will eventually get what's coming to you. Meanwhile, they'll gaslight you by presuming to give you lessons in tolerance and coexistence. What was the today's editorial? Tolerance and coexistence, like from Tom Nichols. Civility, a call for kindness. Civility's fine, but some views deserve contempt. Daily News. The conservative movement used to criticize its opponents as moral relativists. Now, a moral relativist says, well, you know, these ideas of good and bad, right and wrong, sinful and virtuous, no, that binary type thinking doesn't work. You know, you have to determine, you have to make your judgment based on the situation, because some of these concepts are relative. Moral relativism. That's not true today. No more. Conservative movement is not criticizing these folks as being moral relativists. It's not true today if it ever was. We're talking about people who absolutely do believe in a moral standard. And they are it. And you'd better watch what you say. I don't know how this all ends. Maybe there will be a backlash. Maybe there won't. Maybe there'll be more violence. Maybe there won't. Tom Wood, very interesting, comparing where we are to the French Revolution, and I think it's an apt comparison. Okay, next, I suppose this is sort of like the Civil War, that some people say that we are on the threshold of a civil war between the woke and the unwoke, red and blue, lefties versus conservatives, Democrats versus Republicans. California bans travel to Idaho over prohibition on boys competing in girls' sports and new birth certificate rules. If you've ever spent time in Idaho, especially the Treasure Valley, you've likely heard citizens lament the massive influx of Californians to their conservative state. There's a familiar refrain that Southern Cal hippies are going to destroy Idahoans' way of life. So the latest declaration from California Attorney General Javier Becerra banning publicly funded trips to Idaho probably did not cause great consternation among the people of the Gem State. Becerra announced in a news release from his office Monday that the state will ban government-funded trips to Idaho beginning July 1 because of the two new laws that directly authorize discrimination against the transgender community. Oh, that's really, really serious. Two new laws that discriminate against the transgender community. He was referring to Idaho's Bill 500 and Bill 509. House Bill 509, which goes into effect July 1, prohibits biological men from competing in women's school sports statewide. Yeah, so it would be against Idaho law for a man, for instance, to go to a woman's basketball game and say, "Suit me up, put me in, coach, I'm ready." The law signed in March says athletic teams or sports designated for females, women, or girls shall not be open to students of the male sex. How do you say this in tweets?
Facepalm.
Facepalm.
Yes, sir.
Facepalm. Yeah. Athletic teams or sports designated for females, women, or girls shall not be open to students of the male sex. Facepalm. Who'd have ever thunk it? You know,
whoever thunk it, sir, just wasn't thunking.
Yeah. Who'd have ever thunk it that you needed a law to say that if you got a girls' league, boys go play in the boys' league. And it offers specific criteria for determining sex. I wonder who gets to be the sex inspector. I bet that's a coveted job.
I bet it is, sir.
A student may establish sex by presenting a signed physician's statement that shall indicate the student's sex based solely on A, the student's internal and external reproductive anatomy, what I often refer to as plumbing. B, the student's normally and endogenously produce levels of testosterone. C, an analysis of a student's genetic makeup. So I think by now everybody knows that the genetic makeup of males is X and Y, while females have 2X chromosomes, right? Isn't that the way it goes?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So somehow this is controversial in Idaho because boys can't play in the girls' sex league. It also permits testing of students to ensure that they meet standards of biologically female athletes. House Bill 509 blocks transgender Idahoans from changing the sex listed on their birth certificates. Boy, I'll bet you Fernando Esteves knew about this. He would take issue, as he wanted to use the Schrodinger's cat approach to birth certificates on Guam, right? Once you grew up, you could decide whether you were male or female, and then you could get your birth certificate changed and do away with that determination that was made when you were just born and really didn't have time to think about what it was that you were. The law, also set to take effect July 1, states that the purpose of documenting factual information on vital records is to help the government fulfill one of its most basic duties, protecting the health and safety of its citizens, and adds that allowing individuals to alter their vital records, including birth certificates, based upon subjective feelings or experiences, undermines the government's interest in having accurate vital records. Becerra's move this week is based on California's AB 1887, which bans state-funded travel to states with laws that authorize or require discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. The ban applies to all California agencies, departments, boards, authorities, and commissions. It also applies to the state's public university system, which would impact travel for college sporting events in Idaho. Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose it would, if well, let's go on with this article here. The Family Policy of Alliance of Idaho blasted California's move. Blaine Conzatti, he blasted California's move. I remember what I was just reading here about the French Revolution. The conservative movement, we're talking about people who absolutely do believe in a moral standard, and they are it. And you better watch what you say. You better watch what you say, Blaine Conzatti, the organization's director of advocacy. Okay, let's take a short break here, heading up to the big halftime show.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Hofady, this is Kayla from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated team in Guam and the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Agotnia. They are open for dine-in, takeout, and delivery services from Monday through Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. Call them at 479-2652. Get your Mezcla fix today.
Was a little longer than what I had anticipated, but I'm back in the saddle now, and I've got a caller on line one, caller who is no stranger to most of our international radio listening audience. It's Tim Rohr. Good afternoon, Tim.
Hey, Bob. Thanks for reading that piece from Tom Woods. He's one of my favorite authors. He wrote an awesome book called How the Catholic Church Built Western Civilization, and I would recommend at least for Catholics to read that so they actually know their history. There's a maxim that always is true, and there's a scriptural foundation for it, so I want to lay that foundation. But there's a maxim that says, as the church goes, so goes the world. Now, that's not just a nice saying. It's actually rooted in Scripture, where Jesus tells us, you are the light of the world. You, that's us. And and the reason why that's true is because of Christ's passion, death, and resurrection, we have, as Christians, as baptized Christians, have all the grace, strength, power, courage, anything that we need to bring about the kingdom of God on earth. You are the light of the world. And when the church goes astray, so does the rest of the world. So, this desecrating of statues, there's a church precedent for that. It's called Vatican II. After Vatican II, which I lived through as a young man, the church's altars were smashed, statues were torn down. We set the precedent. Catholic Church set the precedent for destroying statues, and the reason is can't we all just get along? It was in the name of ecumenism. Statues offended, our Protestant brothers and sisters, so we got rid of Mary and Saint Joseph, and we basically, hid those statues for years. I saw it happen in my own church where I grew up, but there was a document in Vatican II that laid the foundation for that. It's called Dignitas Humanae. It sounds nice. It says, the dignity of the human person, but it was a controversial document. It was debated very heavily because some of the fathers at Vatican II saw the danger of can't we all just get along, because they essentially admitted that we're all equal so long as we can believe what we believe. There's no true religion. You can believe in whatever you want to believe, and all that kind of thing. The the people that are smashing statues today are basically a religion. It's them. They're their own god. We've had great popes that have warned against this, but after Vatican II, we saw the absolute destruction of our temples. The high altar in the church, which was usually at the very center of the church and sort of at a high point and mostly attached to the wall, and we all faced God together. But post-Vatican II, we tore down those altars, we smashed those altars, we smashed the statues, and we created a nice little, wooden table, because we transformed this holy sacrifice of the Mass to the Eucharistic meal, all in that name. In fact, there was a chapel. I've been to most of the churches on Guam, but one of the chapels I remember, the altar was even set off to the side, where it was kind of to the left, and then the priest was to the right, and then there was really nothing in the middle. But so there was a precedent. Vatican II happened 1962 to 65, and what happened after 1965? Well, 1966. What happened in 66? The Cultural Revolution in America, and with its high point of Woodstock in 1969, the same year that the church radically not just changed the Mass, but completely threw out the Mass and substituted it with something absolutely new and that had no history at all. So, we Catholics need to do a real good look inside here and say, well, who opened the door for this? We did. And then actually that even has a precedent, because the so-called Reformation, led by Martin Luther, was the first, I guess you would call it the iconoclast, where altars were torn down, priests were run out of town, that we set up a worship of each other, priest and people, looking at each other. All that was there. As the church goes, so goes the world. And what we're seeing today was actually codified in that document, Dignitas Humanae, in Vatican II. And I can't help but think every time I see, people desecrating statues, and I would challenge my non-Catholic brothers and sisters to think about this. One of the top criticisms of Catholicism is that we have statues, right? Well, so what about the statue of Abraham Lincoln and George Washington and all the statues that we're now, bemoaning being torn down? Well, that's the Protestant belief, that you shall not make a graven image. Well, what the heck is all that? So it was all a foundation there, and unfortunately, Vatican II was a revolution, and it opened up the door for people to decide, what's best for us. It was a human-centered revolution. It wasn't God-centered, and I'm going to get in a lot of trouble for this, but I'm used to that. But as the church goes, so goes the world. We Catholics, if we're going to change anything, if we're going to fix anything, we've got to put the altar back. We've got to put God back as the focal point and not each other, and stop singing Kumbaya, and get serious about rediscovering, the faith that Jesus Christ left us. So I would encourage people to read that book by Tom Woods. That's what prompted me to call you about that, because that's the book that really shows how, post-Roman Empire, the world descended into chaos that we're seeing now. And it was the Catholic Church at the time, despite all of its ills and woes and bad people, that pulled civilization together and gave us everything: our canon law. Our system of laws, which is based on church laws, and our universities, our hospitals, everything that we hold dear in Western civilization. But Vatican II, and actually, I think Bishop Snyder, he was just here a few months ago. He has come out very hard and very publicly, pointing, the finger at us, that we're the problem. We're the problem. As the church goes, so goes the world. That's my speech for today.
Good speech, Tim. As the church goes, so goes the world. Well, the world has gone to hell in a handbasket, and we saw 30 years of a similar performance here with the Catholic Church, didn't we?
Well, we certainly did. Why are we upset, about anything when we look the other way at the absolute, rape, literally, of the church's own children, and I think both you and I and others know that this was no secret. It was well known. I heard about it when I first moved here 30 years ago. Nobody dared speak up to the powers that be. And there's one more thing, Speaking of moral relativism, we actually have a pope, unfortunately, trying to redefine what mortal sin is. That adultery is no longer a mortal sin. So long as you love each other, everything is cool. So we have a really serious problem, and we challenge Catholics to get serious about prayer. Number one, it's because this is a spiritual warfare. There's nothing new about this. This is spiritual warfare. In fact, the French Revolution, if you really study history, followed on the heels of a particularly immoral time in the church, of grave grave abuses within the church, especially by its clergy and its prelates, just like we're seeing now. We're now following, like you said, on 30 years of even more of grave abuses, by our church leadership. I mean, God bless the good ones. There's always those that still fight back, and unfortunately, they're being taken down with the rest of it. But what's his name? Actually, no, I'm sorry. It wasn't. I'm sitting here. What's his name? It was Pope John Paul II. He said before he died, he said the salvation of the church in the 21st century will come through the laity. It's people that are standing up and saying, we're not, we're mad as hell and we're not going to take this anymore. So, someday, well, maybe not someday, I don't know. I mean, we know what the end is. Jesus Christ is coming back and he will separate the sheep from the goats. Unfortunately, we don't have a church that preaches about hell, death, damnation, sin, anymore. We hear, Jesus loves you just the way you are. So I guess I can do anything but I want to, because it doesn't matter. Jesus loves me, and we just have to change that. I'm not sure how to change it other than in my own personal life and calling your radio show. But we have a church that's really gone astray, and now we're seeing the world follow. As the church goes, so goes the world. That's not a maxim. That's right from the Bible. And just challenging everybody to wake up and start doing their part and call into Bob Klitzkie's show.
Sounds like good advice to me, Tim.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for lending an ear.
Thanks for calling, Tim. Pretty interesting theory. As the church goes, so goes the world. And without elaborating, certainly after the fall of the Roman Empire, the church was the only thing that kept a small flame of civilization burning. Okay, I'm going to finish up this war between California and Idaho, I hope, before the halftime show. Blaine Conzatti, the organization's director of advocacy. Now, I guess I'll have to come back after the big halftime show and finish this up. And then we're going to get to Henry Louis Baza, dealing with the Port 7.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Moving to end Obamacare. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The Trump administration has asked the U.S. Supreme Court to invalidate the Affordable Care Act. In a filing with the High Court late Thursday, Solicitor General Noel Francisco argues that without the requirement that all Americans buy health insurance, the law cannot stand. The penalty for not buying insurance, known as the individual mandate, was ruled unconstitutional by a federal appeals court in December. Proponents of Obamacare asking the Supreme Court to hear the case. Justices agreed, but won't until this fall. The House has passed the Democrats' police reform bill.
The vote there was 236 to 181. There were 3 Republican yeas, Fred Upton, Will Hurd, and Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. But there's now an impasse. They are frozen here because the Senate has not passed a bill because Democrats blocked it. There is a divide between advocates for Black Lives Matter and congressional Democrats, and the bill passed does not defund the police.
Fox's Chad Pergram reports it would ban police from using chokeholds and would end most immunity for police officers. Unless there's a compromise, the House bill is not likely to pass in the Senate. President Trump, in a Fox town hall meeting in Wisconsin, says the federal government will stand up against people trying to tear down historic statues, even if states and local communities won't.
Every night we're going to get tougher and tougher. And at some point there's going to be retribution, because there has to be. These people are vandals, but they're agitators, but they're terrorists, in a sense.
A threatened attempt to attack the Emancipation Memorial in Washington's Lincoln Park on Thursday night did not materialize, perhaps because of a large police presence. After a 300-point gain in the Dow on Thursday, most Asian markets closing Friday higher, except in Hong Kong, but Dow futures are trading down about 100 points. America is listening to Fox News.
As we stand up to coronavirus by standing back with social distancing, Bank Pacific reminds you that you can come to the bank without going to the bank. Use many of our other delivery platforms like online banking at bankpacific.com, accessing cash at our ATMs, shopping with our debit cards. For businesses, we have secure cash and check drop windows, and we are employing a new smarter mobile app with remote deposit capture in the next few weeks. We're all in this together, and together we will win. Bank Pacific. Where others put branches, we place roots. Member FDIC.
As we emerge from the effects of the global pandemic, Security Title is rethinking how to best serve our customers. With our houses clean and closets reorganized, here's a reminder to take a look at the title to your house and other real estate. Is your trust in order? Is it time to update your wills? Do you have the best interest rate available on your home? As we get back to work, there's no better time to revisit your most valuable asset, your property. Call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Colorado's governor asking prosecutors to reopen an investigation into last year's in-custody death of a black man in suburban Denver.
Saying Elijah McClain should be alive today, Governor Jared Polis appointing a special prosecutor to investigate whether criminal charges are warranted for his death. Police in suburban Denver responding to a call last August about a suspicious man wearing a ski mask and waving his arms while walking down the street. Authorities say McClain refused to stop and fought back when police tried to arrest him. An officer placed the 23-year-old black man in a neck hold that cuts off oxygen to the brain, many places banning that maneuver after the killing of George Floyd. McClain went into cardiac arrest on the way to the hospital after paramedics gave him medication to calm him down. Steve Rappaport, Fox News.
President Trump will direct the federal government to overhaul its hiring practices to make skills a priority over a college degree for prospective federal workers. The country trio, the Dixie Chicks, changing their name, now just the Chicks, in response to social unrest in the country. Another artist calling for country music to engage in the calls for change.
Eric Church's new song, Stick That in Your Country Song, reflects the world we are living in.
Drop me off in Baltimore, where every other winter's got a plywood board, where dreams become drugs and guns. The only way out is to shoot or run. Stick that in your country.
The song covers social injustices, veterans having a difficult time returning home from war, and teachers being underpaid. In the song, as reflected in the title, Church urges his fellow country music stars to cover these topics as well. The song is the second from his upcoming Untitled album. His first was Jenny, which was released earlier this year. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
The UN Children's Relief Agency says there's been a huge drop in humanitarian aid money, largely because of the coronavirus, and says millions of children in war-torn Yemen could be pushed to the brink of starvation. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon or call 646-1463.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in Hagåtña and Tumon are now open for takeout and free delivery services in selected locations. For more information, call 479-2652 or 3 or 969-2652. Open Monday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. and from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with the true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine at the comforts of your own home. They take your favorite local dishes and serve them with extra flair you will only find at Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Rent, lease. What does Horizon do for you? Here's a clue. Advertising, marketing, screening, inspecting, instructing, leasing and signing, collecting and complying, inquiring and assessing, coordinating, repairing, renewing, enforcing, evicting, moving, cleaning, rekeying, communicating. Do it yourself and you'll find it taxing. We work hard to keep the vacancies low, so at the end of the month, you collect the dough. Proven and trusted. Horizon Properties. We do it all. 777-7792.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are back at Tall Tales after that big halftime show that we've all come to know and love so well. Every afternoon, 1700 halftime show. Before the halftime show began, I was working on California versus Idaho and a new Idaho law that I don't know how people come up with these things. This sounds pretty radical to me, but Idaho has a couple of laws that says that only men, as you were, only females can play on female athletic teams, and that only men can play on male athletic teams. And apparently there's some controversy over how one would determine who is a male and who is a female. So another Idaho law has ways of testing. And this is how you determine if someone is a male. A student may establish sex by presenting a signed physician's statement that shall indicate the student's sex based solely on A, the student's internal and external reproductive anatomy. That would seem to be enough, wouldn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. B, the student's normal endogenously produced levels of testosterone. Endogenously is a complicated word that means produced inside your own body. Exogenous means something you introduce from your body from outside. So the student's normal endogenously produced levels of testosterone. And C, an analysis of the student's genetic makeup. If you've got an X and a Y chromosome, you're a man, you're a male. double X and you're a female. So if you're a double X, you can play in leagues where all the other players are double X's. And if you're an XY, you can play in leagues where all the other players are XYs. One would have thought you wouldn't need to actually have a state law that regulated such things. However, during the Obama administration, where Obama's Secretary of Education sent out a Dear Colleague letter advising everybody in the school business who accepted any federal aid that when it came time for little Johnny to pee, he could use either restroom. He could use the little girl's room or the little boy's room. And woke school officials would not interfere with little Johnny's rights in that regard. So, you know, where this will all end is a really good question. But anyhow, California has a statute that says that any state let's see, state-funded, California has a law that says state-funded travel to states with laws that authorize or require discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, would mean that no state employees can visit that state with state money. So in a sense, folks in California are saying, you cannot go to Idaho. Now, this article doesn't say this, but I have a feeling that a lot of folks in Idaho are saying, good. And probably a lot of other states are saying, I don't know about this part about sex and gender, but if we enact a law like this, will people from California stay away? If so, let's do it. So Blaine Conzatti, the organization's director of a group called Family Policy Alliance, said, Title IX, this is a federal statute, was designed to protect women's opportunities. And one of the key ways it's been used to accomplish that is through giving women their own sports teams. And it worked, didn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir, it did.
There's professional women's basketball, right?
Yes, soccer, basketball.
Tennis. Yeah. So I've seen some of these female basketball.
Even football, sir.
Football too?
Yeah, there's a women's football league as well.
Wow. Well, I've seen some of these women's basketball leagues. They're not weak sisters, that's for sure. They are good basketball players. Now, back in the day, Real Joe Cruz, we not only had basketball for boys and basketball for girls, they had different rules. There were 6 players on a girls' basketball team. 3 stayed on each end of the court. You could only bounce the ball twice. Yeah. Because, you know, the thinking was girls are so fragile, they can't be running up and down the court. They can't be bouncing that ball. And it was a really bad system. So this whole Title IX thing has probably been a good thing for the country. You know, it has helped a lot of women live up to their potential. So Title IX was designed to protect women's opportunities, and one of the key ways it's been used to accomplish that is through giving women their own sports teams. The Fairness in Women's Sports Act protects the spirit of Title IX by ensuring that girls' sports are reserved for, guess who, Real Joe Cruz?
Girls, sir?
Yeah, that's a novel concept. Girls deserve fair play and equal opportunity in sports today just as much as they did in 1972 when Title IX was implemented. California liberals and the ACU are sending the message that female athletes who don't want to compete against biological men are bigoted and intolerant. She continued. That's Blaine Conzatti. In reality, they just want to compete in sports on a level playing field. That's all the girls are asking for. The gaslighting of Idaho girls needs to stop. There's nothing discriminating about laws that protect fair play and equal opportunity for female athletes, unless, as Tom Wood says, we are trying to recreate our own version of the French Revolution. So we're not only going to start over with a new calendar, we're going to start over with a whole new set of sexes. Okay, next item on the calendar is Henri Louis Baza. And I touched on this a little bit yesterday because there was a post in, there was a WhatsApp from Candid News, but the story ran in today's Post. The Board of Directors at the Port Authority of Guam. I am going to rename the Board of Directors at the Port Authority of Guam, Real Joe Cruz.
To what, sir?
The Board of Spelunkers.
Spelunkers?
Spelunkers. Do you know what spelunkers are?
Explain it to me, sir.
Can you look it up on your phone real quick?
Yeah, I don't think that word would come up. I don't think it's a real word.
It's a real word.
I can look it up on my computer here.
Spelunkers. The Board of Spelunkers at the Port Authority has authorized a deputy general manager to proceed with settlements agreements involving the remaining former employees who are part of the controversial and 8-year-long Port 7 case. The settlements are also... What does it mean, Real Joe Cruz?
A person who explores caves, especially as a hobby.
Uh-huh. So a spelunker is a caver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that what the Board of Directors at the port did?
Yeah, they caved in, sir.
They caved in. So henceforth, they're no longer the Board of Directors. They are the Board of Spelunkers at the Port Authority. The issue stems from a December 2012 adverse action filed against Bernadette Stern-Mano, a former port marketing manager. One of the alleged violations accuses her of actual or attempted theft of government or Port Authority property or property of others related to her workers' comp claim after a fall. It led to her termination and the termination of 6 other port managers and employees in late 2012. The employees took their cases to the Civil Service Commission, leading to a long-standing legal battle that has transitioned from the commission to the courts and then back. Some of the employees have been reinstated. The latest settlements are for Mano, Josette Havalosa, Francis Cepeda, Vivian Leon. Luis Baza, the port deputy general manager, authorized to proceed with the agreements, once served as the CSC chairman. Now, we know a lot about what happened with the Port 7 that we didn't know before because we had the former director, executive manager of the port, here as a guest on Tall Tales yesterday. And one of the things that I think is possible here is that Luis Baza, a former chairman of the Civil Service Commission, sat on the commission as the hearings for these people that I just named came up. Interesting. According to a memorandum on the resolution, the cost to the agency would be about $1.79 million. The settlement cost is nearly double the $1.1 million revenue increase the port posted for all of fiscal year 2019. The port estimated it would have risked paying about $2.8 million should the Board of Spelunkers choose to continue the litigation with the remaining fired port workers and lose. I kind of remember a similar cost-benefit analysis advanced by Rory Respicio when he was talking about settling the YTK case, a bridge we never jumped off of because Mike Phillips, counsel for the port, won the YTK case. The resolution lays out terms for the settlements of employees. The port has also recorded a $3.1 million contingency expense to account for past CSC cases, according to the audit of its fiscal 2019 finances. Now, here comes a really important part of this release. Senator Mary Torres, who was dismissed from her role as port general manager over the alleged political reasons following her refusal to terminate the employees involved in the case, expressed relief. Now, I went through the decision by the administrative law judge for the Civil Service Commission, Eric Miller, a couple days ago, and Miller's decision would lead you to believe that Mary Torres knew about the wrongdoing and just let it go. So I guess perhaps the relief she's expressing is that maybe her name won't be coming up anymore. Maybe people will forget all about this. But Miller's decision pretty much said that all of the Port 6, all of the Port 7, and Mary Torres knew about these things, knew about the no workers' compensation claim, approved payment, moved the thing forward anyhow, and that's why the so-called 60 days ran. But Mary Torres expressed relief. And goes on to say, I can say that I'm very relieved because I never lost faith. What I knew 7 years ago when I appeared before this board is the same as I know now, that it was a bogus firing of the employees. The 7 years have been nothing short of cruel. What the port has done to them. But mostly we squandered valuable port resources paying legal fees to an attorney who knew at the get-go, as of December 5 meeting, that he had missed the timeline to file within the 60-day rule. By December 5, 2012, the 60th day for filing of the notice would have been December 15, 2012, according to the memorandum. The port had paid at least $7 million to a former legal counsel to pursue appeals in the cases. According to the memorandum, it doesn't name the counsel, but attorney Michael Phillips oversaw most of the legal history behind the cases. While fighting the Port 7 cases, Phillips also provided years of work for the port on a disputed lease on Hotel Wharf, which saved the port more than $17 million in potential liability. Determinations in several of the cases, including Manos, found that the port had violated the former 60-day rule notice of adverse actions. This rule required that final notices be submitted to an employee within 60 days of when management knew or should have known about the facts behind the disciplinary action. News stories never get this right. The last paper in a disciplinary case is called a final notice of adverse action. The adverse action is what it's about. The adverse action means you're fired, you're suspended, you're demoted. So talking in terms of a final notice tends to mislead the readers. But what it really means is you got 60 days to tell the employee whether he was fired, demoted, or suspended. In Maino's case, specifically, Eric Miller, the administrative law judge at CSC, determined that Torres and other port management should have known that there was no approved workers' comp claim when they issued approvals for leave and travel for Maino. And going back up to the top again here, Torres and the others should have known there was no approved workers' comp claim. Back up to the top. Senator Mary Torres, who was dismissed from her role as port general manager, etc., following her refusal to terminate the employees in the case, expressed relief. And I just have a feeling that she's saying, "Ooh, I wish they'd stop saying this about me." Okay, time for the seventh inning stretch. After the seventh inning stretch, we'll come back to the Port Authority of Guam. And to a call from Frenchie.
COVID-19 coronavirus irapada sibo sabuera riawara fitne firats seria QS of charts on neighbors. Sibo sabuera rivesives puri live boat water kisi boots. May for correct chair at Sibo Rosits Nirikiwe Sidisin Ikapesepes Serimun. Sibo Furry Wizards Arabikisi Rotsudan is summer coronavirus. Retitsikire Rose, the Curry, Uriat, A citizen Avito Seriatsu Office Micronesian Resource Center, Echo Radio Station Not Choice Broadcasting, Mewa US Department of Interior, Office of Insular Affairs.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile team, conveniently located at the East-West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Horizon Properties. Call 646-7616 or 777-7792. You can also visit them at horizonpropertiesguam.com.
Field, Chicago, seventh inning stretch, and we're going to go from Wrigley Field in Chicago all the way to France and entertain a call from our friend Frenchie. Good afternoon, Frenchie.
Good afternoon, Bob. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Good. Well, it was interesting the parallel of the gentleman that you read about. It's fairly accurate, not extremely accurate, but it's fairly accurate, at least in the sense that the French revolutionaries wanted to get rid of the old and go on with the new. So they even in '89 they even made the Catholic faith illegal, and priests had to swear allegiance to the revolution and so on. And in '93, when they guillotined Louis XVI, then they even changed the names and everything. You know, they changed everything. They destroyed a lot of things. It's not unsimilar with the Soviet Revolution, would destroy a lot of churches and icons, Orthodox icons and all that, and what the Maoists did during the Cultural Revolution. So actually, the Cultural Revolution made it so stupid that most of the artifacts from quality artifacts from the Chinese culture are in Taiwan, because Chiang Kai-shek stole them on his way out and brought them with him. So they actually got protected from the revolution itself. So you see that. That thing repeating itself all the time, and that's trying to erase the history of people. And Tim was almost right on some things. You know, the church, big problem were in the 16th century, and then which led into the Reformation in the 17th century, the 30-Year War, the War of Religions in France, and in the 17th century, then you had the explosion of Catholic renewal, which brought in, but the French Revolution was basically brought in by part of the ruling class, a lot like what is happening in the U.S. in the universities and other places where the elites are. The ruling class, which was, France at the time was separated in three different things. You had the people, the clergy, and the nobility, and each had a set role. The people were either raising food or doing commerce and so on. The clergy, of course, was taking care of the souls and the well-being of people. They were they built a lot of hospitals and took care of the orphans and the widows and everything. There was no social system like we have now, so the church was doing that. That was part of their charitable work, and it was expected from the elites that they do the same thing. And then the nobility, basically their job was to defend the country. They were the warriors. The problem is that starting in the 17th century, they became courtesan rather than warrior, and so little bit at the time, they no longer fulfill their role, and people were starting perceiving them as being like leeches, just taking advantage of the people doing the hard work. And what's very interesting is that what brought the French Revolution was the Freemasonry in France, which came from Scotland and England, and most of the Freemasons were part of the nobility. So. And what's amazing is that the Freemasons are for the destruction of the Catholic Church. So this is where everything kind of coalesces, and we can see some of this now. You know, I talked to you about a week ago about the colored revolutions, but even before the colored revolution, you had during the Clinton administration back in the 90s, you had the destruction of Yugoslavia, which was organized by the same characters, part people of the CIA and the Soros societies and all those people, which basically what they did was first to destroy the police and destroy the justice system, and then destroy the country along their ethnic lines. And this is exactly what is happening right now. You have, if you saw Soros, the last two elections, they're trying to elect very liberal judges. They are putting in place people at every level in the state legislature, in the local courts, everywhere. They put very liberal people that refuse to enforce the law, and so now you have chaos. And then when you have chaos, I think that what they were hoping earlier with all those riots was that Trump would overreact, and they would say, ha ha ha, see, he's a tyrant, and then they would have campaigned on that. But he didn't take the bite on this, and actually let the situation rot in Seattle, which probably was the best thing to do, because it let all the bad people show their game. And then, but it's an election year, and just like on Guam, it's everything is, all the decisions made are made because of the election. So we still have to find out who Obama is going to suggest to Biden as a vice president. I'm putting, my little crystal ball tells me Susan Rice, who used to be the UN ambassador and who was doing a lot of spying before the end of the Obama administration. And then it would be an African-American woman as a vice president, and most likely could become president because Biden is in very poor health, even though they are denying it. So it's very interesting. You know, all those things happening right now is what they call in Europe the weapons of mass distraction. They are there to distract people from the real issues. If you saw, the riot started right when the Senate was having hearings about Russiagate and Obamagate. And of course, the coverage was close to zero and they were very important hearings, but the coverage was almost nothing because the media and the Democrats didn't want it to be known by the general public. So they kept covering the riots. And I think some of those riots were pushed further just to distract from those things. And everything is about distraction. On Guam, here is the same thing. We're seeing musical chairs and a lot of people in the administration. We're talking about all kind of secondary issues and overlooking the real problem that there is with the administration ineptitude to govern and to do the things that needs to be done for the people of Guam. And on the mainland, the Republican Party is kind of wishy-washy about all this. They are not any leaders outside maybe of the other governor, Guerrero, who is putting his hat in the arena to become a senator. But I don't see many other people that are going and running against the administration's record or lack of record. So this is where we are.
Well, I think there are a lot of parallels with the destruction of the statues, the beating up on people that, you know, one way or another, that don't conform, that don't use the right pronouns, etc. So,
yeah. Well, it's the role of the mobs, and this is exactly, the French Revolution was not a real revolution in France, it was mostly in Paris. And they use the mobs, they empty just like they did in New York during the pandemic. They empty the prisons, and then we find those people rioting later on. You know, you had 250 people that were released in New York that committed 450 crimes within 2 weeks. And a lot of them were arrested and released again because there is no bail. You know, we're walking on our head. You know, it's ridiculous. So,
yeah,
a lot of parallels in that way. It's the deconstruction of the state and of the values, the statues being the values. It's ridiculous. You know, they even tearing down Grant, who ended the Civil War and destroyed the KKK until Woodrow Wilson reinstated it in the 1920s, and they even tore down the statue of Velázquez. I mean, it's so ridiculous. The Spanish writer, who was himself a slave for 6 years on Arabic galleys, you know, almost died and was finally able to buy off his freedom. But you know, this is how ridiculous the thing is. They are tearing down the statues of former slaves. It's like it's total inanity, and I'm afraid we are going to see a lot of it until November. And if Trump wins, we're going to see even more because they are not going to agree with it. They're going to say he cheated. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, thanks for being our informant on things French, Frenchie.
Well, yeah, anytime. Yep.
Thanks for calling.
Thank you, and you have a very nice weekend.
Well, the real Joe Cruz and I will suffer through it. We'll make it somehow. Thank you. Okay, so our friend Frenchie, talking about the French Revolution. I peeked out of the corner of my eye here and saw an interesting post from Maria Fagotgood. This is what Maria Fagotgood says. There are only two genders, male and female. No amount of cosmetic surgery will change that. When they dig up transgender bones in 100 years, what do they think they will find? Case closed. In the words of Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. Very good, Maria Fagotgood. Thank you for that. Okay, I got I've got Keith on the line. Good afternoon, Keith.
Good afternoon, Bob. I got to tell you, I'm got to pick a bone with you about the use of the term spelunkers. As a spelunker, an actual spelunker, I'm a little offended. I'm triggered, and I may need a safe space.
You know, if I could interrupt for just a second, the same thing happened with Washington Redskins. You know, there was a lot of politically correct grousing about calling a team the Washington Redskins. So several Native American leaders came out and spoke up, and they said, "We hate this name, Washington Redskins. We don't want to in any way be associated with Washington."
I was going to suggest an alternative.
All right.
Jellyfish. Because they have no spine.
Yeah, you know, that's a good idea. I may work on that on Monday. There's a guy named Ralph Buchsbaum. I remember from my college biology class, Ralph Buchsbaum wrote one of the seminal treatises in about 1940 called Animals Without Backbones. So maybe we could ask that the board of spelunkers change their name, and during the ceremony erect a statue to Ralph Buchsbaum.
Sounds good to me.
I'm sorry. You're a spelunker, Keith? Where do you?
Yeah, I've been camping for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, the ports just started in January.
Okay, so then I'm just going to pull seniority.
Yeah, you got time and grade on them, that's for sure. Well, thanks.
Have a good weekend, Bob.
Thanks a lot for setting me straight on that one, Keith. Yeah, angry callers, you know. Hey, where's that horn of yours, Real Joe Cruz? Maybe if you'd have honked the horn when I was renaming the board of spelunkers, Keith wouldn't have been so hot under the collar, so to speak. All right, let's see who I got. Who else? Our Carl. I wonder if our Carl, you're not a spelunker, are you?
No, I'm not a spelunker. I've been in a few caves when I was a little kid, but they weren't fun places to me. The older kids used them to scare us little kids, so I don't have good memories about that.
All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to call in and weigh in on a couple of points. One of them was regarding the removal of statues. I really have no problem with removal of statues, even, you know, a statue of Jesus Christ, you know. But whatever happened to a representative form of government, you know, where if people wanted something done, they go to their representatives and they present their case and they convince the elected representatives that this is a good idea, and then the elected representatives push for the idea and get it done.
Well, let me refer you back to the D word, Carl, democracy. You know,
yeah, exactly.
Most people, if you give them a choice, which is better, representative government or democracy? Oh, democracy. I'm all for democracy, right?
Yeah.
So the mob is the purest form of democracy.
Exactly, yeah.
The majority rules. It rules right now. It's not constrained by a bunch of procedures and technicalities or superior bodies or anything else. So the removal of these statues by the mob is democracy. And I think Frenchie kind of alluded to that. The idea is to repudiate the idea of representative democracy. And that's why they're doing all this stuff, this pure democracy.
Yeah, and just seeing the insanity, the anarchy that's going on, you can see the wisdom of the founders and the writers and signers of the Constitution in what they did. They understood the potential for disaster for a pure democracy. You know, pure democracies down through history have not ended well, precisely because of what we're seeing across the United States right now. Yeah. And you know, if this representative form of government isn't used, and people do decide to form mobs and tear down statues that they find annoying, whatever happened to punishment for destruction of public property? I mean, I'm seeing these mobs do this, and I'm just seeing no resistance, or very little of it anyway.
Now, see, you don't understand how the woke mind works, Carl. It's not, if it's public property, that means it's theirs. If it's government, because the government obviously stole it from one or more identity groups, African Americans or Native Americans or whatever. So they're just reclaiming stolen property. And then the second thing, that under some circumstances, speech can be violence. So if a person were to stand up in the middle of Chaz in Seattle and read that article that I read about Idaho versus California, that would be violence as far as the folks in Chaz are concerned, because it doesn't properly respect people who are transgenders or whatever. So speech is violence, and once you detect violence, then you are able to use violence to combat violence. So statues are symbolic speech, right? If you see a statue of Abraham Lincoln, that's that's symbolic speech saying, one country, not two, no more slavery, et cetera, et cetera. But if you don't like that speech, if you classify that speech as violence, then you must tear it down. Violence against violence. Crazy, isn't it?
They even say silence is violence.
Silence is violence, yeah.
Yeah, another quick point I'd like to make is that our favorite economist, Thomas Sowell, has actually written on this quite extensively. There's a video I saw one time that went through he's written over 40 books, and it classifies them and tries to present some kind of order in which to read them, the most important ones. And the guy that put it together is very obviously a very smart guy. And at the top of the list were two of his books that deal with exactly this point. One of them was, number one was The Vision of the Anointed, and the other one was A Conflict of Visions. And they're very important books because in these books, Sowell deals with the clash of these two visions that we see going on right now, and that were going on back in the French Revolution and have gone on in the Russian Revolution, in the Chinese Revolution, the Cuban Revolution. And basically, Sowell said that there are two visions of the world that, that people choose to adopt. One of them, and you've heard of this, Bob, but I'm just saying it for the, the listeners. One of them is the constrained vision, and one of them is the unconstrained vision. The French Revolution was a revolution based on the unconstrained vision, the idea that if we just get the right people into power, and if we just create the right institutions and laws, that we'll have paradise. Jean-Jacques Rousseau, that I think he said that. He said that mankind is born free, but is everywhere in chains. And that really is a condensation of this idea of the unconstrained vision, that we are perfectible, that mankind is the only thing that's keeping us back from realizing our true potential is getting the right people into power, like Lenin and Stalin and Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And if we just get the right people into power, if we just elect the right people, speaking of elections coming up, that paradise will break out. And the constrained vision was the vision behind our founders, the writers and signers of the Constitution. Their vision was that mankind is flawed from the beginning, and that the most important thing we need to do, and that lawmakers need to do, And what they did in the Constitution was to constrain lawmakers and people in power that we've entrusted power with, to constrain them from doing really terrible things. And the Bill of Rights, you know, the First Amendment is, as you've pointed out before, is it's meant to constrain the government. All 27 amendments are meant to constrain the government. They're not meant to constrain the people. It's to constrain people that we've entrusted with immense power from doing very, very bad things. And anyway, I just wanted to add that in as just a little side note, that Thomas Sowell, who, you know, we're both great admirers of, has written extensively about this idea that is behind what we're seeing today, the clash of these two visions, the constrained vision and the unconstrained vision. It's going on right in front of our eyes. And I was thinking, you know, many, you know, decades ago, I was thinking, well, we're getting more, you know, better, and we're developing into better people, and mankind is moving, you know, is improving. And technologically, that's very true. We are improving in that way. We have better inventions. Our lives are getting easier. But our human nature essentially is exactly the same as it's been thousands of years ago. And if it's not constrained, especially people who are in power, that's extremely, extremely dangerous. Anyway, that's just a few thoughts I wanted to toss out there, and it's been very, very fascinating listening, especially Frenchie's French dessert at the end of the show. It's been really a great show.
He's an important part of the Lash Up, Carl, just like our Carl.
Yeah, as soon as I hear Frenchie come on, and some of the others too, but especially Frenchie, I mean, I drop everything and I sit down and I listen, because he obviously has an understanding of history that you know, is very helpful to me. So great show, Bob. Another one you can put in a can. I'm sorry you have to wait 2 more days before you get another tall tale.
It's going to be tough. Thanks, our Carl. Okay, short break, and then we're coming back on the home stretch.
Half a day. This is Michelle from APL Guam. Here at APL, our expertise and extensive network can help you grow your business and reach out to more markets. As a responsible carrier, APL is also committed to a sustainable future, whether it's protecting the environment or investing our efforts in giving back to the community. Our dedicated teams in Guam and on the U.S. mainland are here to support you. Call 588-4651 or visit apl.com.
You've got a job to do. Having the right equipment for the job is critical, and East West Rental has the exact tools you need. Get it done faster with the right stuff, whether it's landscaping tools, concrete tools, lifts, trucks, lights, generators, trench boxes, welders, tents, tables, and chairs. They're here to help you tackle any project you're working on, big or small. Open Monday to Saturday, 7 to 5, closed Sundays. Find what you're looking for at East West Rental Center in Upper Tumon, or call 646-1463.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Seventh inning stretch, as you were, home stretch. We passed the 7th inning stretch 2 innings ago, and now we left baseball and we're at Churchill Downs for the home stretch. So going down the home stretch, Frenchie popped up and told us one thing about Jean-Jacques Rousseau that I'll have to admit I didn't know either. He was Swiss, according to Frenchie. I suppose from the French part of Switzerland. But I could understand, if I were a Frenchman, I wouldn't want to claim him either. Yeah. So maybe we could do the same thing with some of our folks here in the U.S. that we don't like very well. We could say, no, he's not American, he's Canadian. right?
True, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, let me cruise down through Facebook here and see what other pithy comments I have to rely on here today. I got James Howard and Joe Pareto, who agrees with me. Blacklisted is racist. James Howard, convenient. She did all this before retiring. She being, I think, Commissar de Norsey, right? And David Evans, Orange is the New Black, famous TV show that I never watched. And then David Evans, closed is the new open. Yeah, a little newspeak there. So when Lou Leon Guerrero says things are closed, that means they're actually open. Patricia Duenas, the way I see it, the governor is trying to use the airman for closing down, the airmen for closing down places again and extend the quarantine. And let's see. And then I've got, let's see what the rest of this thread is here. Yeah, David Evans, closed is a new open. Jill Pareto, stop it, you're killing me. All right. And see, I'm having a little trouble here with my font is smaller than it used to be. Real Joe Cruz, see if you can enlarge this font on Monday, okay?
I'll ask Ray. That's
All
Ray's
right.
computer. So.
All right. Richard V. Leon, Silence of the Lambs seems to be a Chamorro cultural fact. And Jose Martinez says that Carl was right about Jean-Jacques Rousseau, even though he's Swiss, not French. And Richard Leon says Guam public wants the Guam public wants you, Carl Bora Nelson. The legislature would go topsy-turvy, and I think that's right. If Carl Bora Nelson were in the legislature with his calm, cool, reasonable, logical delivery on every point, they wouldn't know how to handle that.
He's got all the good names, too, to be a politician.
That's right.
Carl. Borja.
Nelson. Wow, Nelson. That sounds like a composite,
Yeah.
like some sort of a Frankenstein.
It's put together.
Take a Carl from here and a Borja from over there.
Yeah.
Slap in some Nelson.
There you go. And you've got one complete politician right there.
Yeah, great signs. All you got to do is vote for Carl Bora Nelson.
Yeah.
You're listening, Carl? Jose Martinez says, it's like there's a test for relative purity these days. A very fascist virtue, ironically inherent in the Antifa mindset. Pam Duval says Frenchie is an awesome point family member. Or, in other words, our family here. And let's see, I got Walter Gray. Great show. Never disappoints. Thank you. I could sit around and listen to read comments like that all day long, Real Joe Cruz. And Jill Pareto, great show, boys. I wonder if she really meant that.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Great show, boys?
Yeah.
How does she know you're a boy?
I have no idea. She hasn't even seen my genetic makeup yet.
Yeah, well, she hasn't seen your notes to yourself, reminding yourself of what you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I'm part puppy dog tails, though.
Okay. Yeah, boy, you can't say that. What are girls made of? Little girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice. What are little boys made of? Dogs and snails and puppy dog tails. You know, if a kid said that today in the wrong school, they'd wash their mouth out with soap.
They might take down statues outside that school, sir.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, it's been another great week here on Tall Tales. The Real Joe and I are going to tough it out through the weekend. We'll be back on Monday, 1600 Monday afternoon. We'll see you then.